Imagine a single classified document signed not in the halls of Baghdad, but potentially with the authority of a former American president. That holds the precise key to unlocking the trillion-dollar wealth of Iraq, a key that has been kept in the shadows until this very moment. What if I told you that the entire chaotic narrative surrounding the Iraqi Dinar revaluation, a story filled with decades of hope, speculation, and heartbreak, was all leading to a single, calculated move, a move so strategically brilliant and yet so deceptively simple that almost every single one of the so-called gurus and financial analysts has completely missed its true, earth-shattering implication? We are not talking about a random, speculative jump in value to some fantastical number. We are talking about a surgical geopolitical masterstroke, a hidden directive, an order that we can trace back to the final days of the previous US administration, an order that allegedly establishes a strict, non-negotiable 2% margin for the initial revaluation of the Iraqi currency. Now, I know what you're thinking, 2%. After all this waiting, after all the promises of vast riches, a mere 2% seems almost insulting, doesn't it? It seems like a drop in the ocean, a pathetic whimper instead of the roaring bang we were all led to expect. But that, right there, is the entire point. That is the genius of this maneuver, and that is precisely why this is not an ending, the most critical beginning, the official starting pistol for a financial revolution across the Middle East. This 2% is not a destination. It is the deliberate, controlled, and politically acceptable trigger. It is the green light that the global financial institutions, particularly the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, have been waiting for. A massive, overnight revaluation to $3 or more would cause instant chaos. It would destabilize not just Iraq, but the entire region, creating hyperinflation, social unrest, and a global economic shockwave. But a 2% move, that is a whisper, that is a signal. It is a coded message to the entire world that Iraq is finally, after 2 decades of war and occupation, ready to stand on its own 2 financial feet, but it is doing so with the cautious, calculated blessing of its most powerful former adversary. This is the ultimate compromise, a bridge between the desperate need for Iraq to reclaim its monetary sovereignty and the reluctant acceptance by Western powers that the era of the US dollar's absolute dominance in the region is slowly, inevitably coming to a close. This secret order, this Trump dinar order as it's being called in intelligence circles, is the foundational bedrock upon which the entire new financial architecture of Iraq is being built. It is the legal and political cover that the Central Bank of Iraq needed to finally and irrevocably pull the plug on the corrupt, decades-old dollar auction system, a system that bled billions of dollars from the Iraqi people and enriched a small cabal of politically connected oligarchs. The closure of that auction was not an isolated event. It was the direct, planned consequence of this order. Think of it as the first domino to fall. And this 2% revaluation is the second domino. It is the official technical confirmation that Iraq is transitioning away from a dollar-dependent auction-based monetary policy to a true, independent asset-backed currency system. This is the moment the Iraqi dinar becomes a real, internationally recognized currency, not just a speculative commodity. It moves from the shadows of the black market and the rumor mills into the bright, regulated light of the global forex market. This 2% is the formal admission ticket. It is the signal that Iraq is now playing by the rules of the international financial community, a community that demands stability, predictability, and control above all else. This is the story they don't want you to understand, because once you see this initial 2% for what it truly is, a strategic key, the entire magnificent plan for the future of Iraq and the de-dollarization of the Middle East becomes crystal clear. So if this 2% revaluation is the key, then what is the lock it's designed to open? What is the monumental door that swings wide after this seemingly modest adjustment? The answer lies in a code name that you absolutely must burn into your memory: Remittance 338. This isn't just another bureaucratic policy. This is the operational engine, the very nervous system of the new Iraqi economy, and it was designed from the ground up to interface directly with the parameters set forth by that secret order. While everyone was staring at the exchange rate, hoping for a miracle, the real revolution was being quietly installed in the back offices of the Central Bank of Iraq. Remittance 338 is the complete and total architectural overhaul of how money moves into, out of, and within the nation of Iraq. It is the system that replaces the graft and corruption of the old dollar auction with a digital, transparent, and traceable ledger for every single hard currency transaction. Think of the old system as a leaky pipe. Billions of dollars were flowing in for oil, but through the auction, billions were being siphoned off by corrupt players, money launderers, and terrorist organizations, never actually reaching the Iraqi people. Remittance 338 is the valve. It's the smart digital an unforgivingly precise valve that ensures every dollar that enters the Iraqi economy is accounted for, its purpose verified, and its final destination known. This system directly enforces the 2% margin by creating a controlled environment where the dinar's value can be managed with surgical precision, shielding it from the speculative attacks and manipulative pressures that doomed previous attempts at reform. This is the hidden green light that astute investors are whispering about. It's not the light for a sudden massive payoff. It's the green light for systemic stability. It's the signal that Iraq now possesses the technological and regulatory infrastructure to defend its currency's value. This is what gives the 2% its profound power. That small, controlled adjustment is the system's first official breath. It proves that Remittance 338 works. It demonstrates to the IMF, the World Bank, and every major financial institution on the planet that Iraq is no longer a financial black hole, but a credible, accountable partner. And credibility in the world of international finance is a currency more valuable than gold or oil. This is the master plan that connects Trump's alleged order to the ground reality in Baghdad. The order provided the political framework and the international cover, and Remittance 338 provides the executable mechanism. One cannot function without the other. Political order without a system to enforce it is just a piece of paper. A sophisticated system like Remittance 338 without the high-level political protection would have been sabotaged and dismantled by the corrupt forces that profited from the old chaos. Together, they form an unstoppable tandem. This is the strategic game plan behind the numbers. The 2% revaluation, when viewed through this lens, is the most bullish signal imaginable. It is not a limit, it is a launch pad. It is the proof of concept that allows for the next, more significant phase to begin. Once this 2% is successfully held and managed within the Remittance 338 environment, the foundation is set. The next step is the formal and irreversible transition away from the US dollar for internal and regional trade. This is the de-dollarization you've heard so much about. It's not an act of defiance, it's an act of maturation. It's Iraq graduating from a dollar-based petro economy to a dinar-based sovereign economy. The stability proved by the 2% move enforced by Remittance 338 gives other regional powers, like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, the confidence to begin accepting the Iraqi dinar for oil, for goods, for everything. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle of demand for the dinar, a cycle that is no longer based on speculation but on the concrete, practical needs of regional commerce. The value is no longer arbitrary. It becomes a function of real economic activity, backed by the most powerful asset of all, trust, verified by a flawless digital system. This is how a 2% shift changes everything. It's the first quiet and deliberate step onto a pathway that leads to only one destination: the alignment of the dinar's international value with the immense, untapped wealth of the Iraqi nation itself. And so we arrive at the final and most critical piece of this entire puzzle: the human consequence, the global realignment, and what you must do right now in this precise moment of transition. The controlled 2% revaluation enforced by the Remittance 338 system and backed by that foundational political order was never the finish line. It was the starting gate for the true economic renaissance of Iraq, an event that will send shockwaves through global power structures and redefine wealth in the 21st century. Imagine the next sequence of events now that the first two dominoes have fallen. With a stable and internationally recognized currency, Iraq can finally begin to leverage its true, staggering potential, which is not just its vast oil reserves, but its strategic geography, its youthful population, and its untouched agricultural and mineral wealth. The Iraqi dinar, now a credible store of value, becomes the vehicle for this transformation. The next logical and indeed inevitable step is for Iraq to begin pricing its oil in dinar, or at the very least, in a currency basket that heavily weights the dinar, effectively ending decades of dollar-denominated oil sales. This single act would shatter the petrodollar system as we know it, creating a gravitational pull that would draw the entire Middle East away from the US dollar and towards a new regional financial paradigm. This is not a conspiracy. It is a simple matter of economic sovereignty and national interest. Why should Iraq, or any nation for that matter, sell its most valuable resource in a foreign currency, thereby strengthening another nation's economy at its own expense? The 2% revaluation proves they no longer have to. This is the ultimate endgame of de-dollarization, and it is happening now, not in some distant future. The flow of petrodollars that has propped up the US economy and given the American currency its supreme status for 50 years is about to be severely constricted, and the wealth that once flowed westward will now be reinvested directly into the Iraqi homeland. We are about to witness the greatest infrastructure boom in modern history, the rebuilding of ancient cities, the creation of new industries, and the rise of a new powerful middle class in the heart of the ancient world, the value of the dinar will not skyrocket due to speculation, but it will appreciate steadily, powerfully, and sustainably, driven by the most fundamental force in economics, real, productive growth backed by tangible assets. This is why the initial 2% was so brilliant. It filtered out the speculative noise and laid the groundwork for genuine, long-term value creation. The get-rich-quick dream is replaced by the build wealth slowly reality, a reality that is far more powerful and permanent. The global financial map is being redrawn as we speak, and Iraq is moving from a position of dependency to a position of leadership. This is the strategic game plan behind the numbers, a plan designed not to create overnight millionaires, but to build a nation that will stand as an economic powerhouse for centuries to come. The secret order, the Remittance 338 system, the closure of the dollar auction, and the 2% revaluation, they were all the opening moves in a grand strategic game for the future of global economics. Understanding this is your key to navigating the coming shift. This is not just about a currency, it is about recognizing a fundamental transfer of power and positioning yourself accordingly. The information is now in your hands. You have seen the blueprint. You understand the sequence. The question that remains is not what will happen, but what you will do with this knowledge. Will you be a passive observer, watching history unfold on a screen? Or will you become an active participant in this new financial dawn? The choice and the responsibility is now yours.